Hey everyone, good evening. Apologies for my video quality. I think it's just because it's later here. My op-ed is titled Criminal Justice Reform Too Fast? Ask Communities of Color If It Feels Rushed. The author is Kimberly Lightford, and it was published in the Chicago Tribune on January 18th of this year. And she begins by talking about how the fight for social justice and civil rights for all Americans is not something that's new and recent. It's been ongoing for generations, and yet here we are, we're in 2021. There's still so many inequities that we need to fix in our system in order to allow Black Americans and other communities of color to reach their full potential. She is a Black woman, and she's also a mother and wife. And so I think it's important to note and I appreciate having found an article from that viewpoint, since she is a member of the community that is being impacted by this social problem. And she's also a stakeholder in the legislation that she talks about, and future legislation of criminal justice reform in general. So in the state of Illinois, in January, legislation was passed to overhaul the state's criminal justice system, and specifically, it ended cash bail, and it was targeted to end cash bail and also to require all police in the state to be equipped with body cameras. So critics say that it's too much too soon, and the rest of her article she dedicates to why it is not that. If anything, this has been a long time coming. This is something that has impacted communities of color for decades, and most recently punctuated by George Floyd's death this past summer. So while critics may complain that it's been taking too long, communities in color ask, why has it taken so long? Critics also specifically say that the cash bail, ending cash bail is being implemented too quickly, but in the legislation, it's a 2-year phase-in. Additionally, there's been some criticism around the additional trainings that police officers will have to undergo, but it's trainings in order to familiarize them with uncomfortable situations, which will hopefully reduce violent encounters, which I think, and this writer thinks, would be beneficial for everyone. Also, this author speaks to the fact that many different stakeholders were invited to chime in and give their opinion on this legislation. So over the summer and fall, the Senate hosted 32 legislative hearings, which covered well over 100 hours of testimony regarding the legislative Black Caucus agenda. They were public hearings. Members of the Illinois House were invited. Law enforcement groups testified. Media outlets covered all of these hearings. And additionally, lobbyists for law enforcement groups were invited to be part of the process. So they had the ability to contribute to the creation of this legislation. And in fact, they did. These lobbyists for law enforcement did win some key concessions, including qualified immunity. So that is a term which gives police broad protection from lawsuits if they violate someone's rights. And initially, the proposal had included ending that protection, arguing that police would behave better if they had some sort of financial skin in the game and could be sued for said behavior. But in the final draft of the legislation, that qualified immunity was left intact, which was what law enforcement wanted. However, the author points out that their concerns with that aren't going away. They've created a task force that reserves a seat at the table of law enforcement to continue to confront this issue in the months ahead. And she ends by saying that this was a historical step forward for the community toward ending police brutality, correcting systemic racism and injustices, not only in law enforcement, but also widespread in the community in education, workforce development, economic development. So she ends by saying, and I quote, "Did we act too fast? I don't think so. It's not like we passed it in 8 minutes and 46 seconds. That would be enough."